Hey, I'm Alex from Zaxwerks, here to show you how to use instancing and object distribution inside of 3D ProAnimator. In the process of learning this, we will be making this cool animation right here. So let's take a look. We have this animation. Let me loop it back for you. We have this one sphere. It's instanced like 5,000 times, and then it's distributed in the shape of this face and the shape of the 8, and then animated in between the two, and a little bit of texture and a little bit of post-production After Effects stuff put in there too. So let's go ahead, jump into the program, and see how to do this. If you only use a standalone, that's all right. Follow along, and you'll still be able to get the principles behind this animation. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the parts of this. So first of all, we have our one sphere. It's distributed into this face, and then it animates and swarms around, and then gets distributed into the shape of this 8. And notice this is a 3D shape. This is not just a 2D 8, this is a 3D 8, and we will go over how to make these shapes. So let's go ahead, jump into the program and see how it's done. So first of all, come up to composition, new composition. I want it 5 seconds long, 1280 by 720. Click OK. New layer, new solid layer. Make sure it's a different color than your comp, so I'll have it this bright red. Click OK, and now we can apply our ProAnimator effect. Create an empty scene, and we are set and ready to go. Let's open it up, and now we are to the point that all the standalone users are with us too. So let's go ahead and just start off by creating a sphere. You can go ahead up to Object, Create 3D Primitive, Sphere. Great, we have a sphere in our scene. Now with this we can distribute an instance right down here in our post positioning. So notice this menu right here, we have none, alternating, grouped, and random. These are the different types of instancing, and all instancing is it duplicates your objects in your track over and over again. And so since we are only using a sphere, it really doesn't matter if we have alternating or grouped or random, because it's just one object. So we'll click alternating, and then we're going to go over here and pick a different distribution type. And so just to start, so you can see what distribution is, we'll pick a sphere shell. So the outside of a sphere, increase the size a little bit and increase the number of instances. And notice as I increase that, our sphere gets filled in. And so look at that, we have a sphere making up spheres. Ooh, interesting. But now let's go ahead, import our face, because it's just a 3D model from another program. We'll import that and then distribute our sphere into the vertices of that object. So I will turn off this layer for now, deselect, come up to Object, Import 3D Objects, and select your face model. Click Import, and now let's zoom in, and we have our face right there. We have a face, very simple face. So I can click on this little ball right here. This will give us the wireframe mode, and when we zoom in, we see we have a bunch of triangles. These triangles are called polygons, and where the polygons meet, like right here, is called a vertice. And so what we can do is we can take all of our spheres and map them into the vertices of any 3D object. And we can do that by, let's zoom back out, turn off wireframe, and select our post. We can do that by coming down here, whoops, select it, coming down here, I'll turn that guy off now too, coming down here, okay, and select 3D object vertices. And now we have this extra menu here, and this extra menu is to find our object track 2 where our face is and select our face. However, we see we have a bunch of items. This might be falling off the edge of the screen for you guys, but we have a bunch of items that aren't just our face. It is our face, but our face is made up into a couple different objects. And so what I can do is I can come over to our object list, select the top part of our face, select the last item of our face, and click Grouped, this G button. And now we have a group. So double click to rename it. We'll rename it Face just to keep track of everything. Come back up here to our object track 1, and now when we come here to object track 2, we see Face. And so when I click that, let's increase our instances and decrease our scale by a lot. So let's go down to like 7. And now we see our face is starting to get filled in. I'll increase this, and we see we sort of have an ear here, we sort of have a nose right here. Doesn't look quite right yet because we don't have enough objects. And so right here we see we have 5,716 vertices. That is exactly to the number, to the one position, how many vertices our face has. So we can go ahead, click in here and just type that straight in without having to waste our time and scrub. Click enter, and now our face is created. Look at that. Look how fast that was. And it looks really cool. You know, it's a very fun look. And now we can go ahead, create our 8, and have the face swarm into the 8. So what we're going to do is turn off this layer, deselect. Oops, turn that layer off. Come to Object, create 3D text, and then type in our 8. Boom. I have my font selected I want, and you can type in anything you want, any word you want. I'm just going to use the number 8 for now. So I'm going to go ahead, click OK, and now we have our 8. And so when we turn wireframe on, we can see the same thing is applied to the 8. We still have our polygons and we have our vertices. However, polygons are only applied to the round parts, and there's very few polygons along the top part. And the reason being because the program doesn't want to use a lot of polygons if it doesn't have to. So we can come in here to our object controls, and we can notice that when we increase the preview, because we are in preview, we're not in final mode yet, decrease or increase the preview, the object gets more or fewer polygons based on if I increase it or decrease it. However, it's still only on the sides right here because it doesn't want to add extra polygons right there. It's the smoothness. I understand. We understand. However, we need to tell the program, you know what? It's okay. Subdivide it up for us. So let's open up this info twirly right here, turn on meshing, and if you guys are familiar with warping and the preview and final mode of warping, the final mode still has to be the same number as the preview mode. However, it's different in this case. The distribution is only ever looking at the preview mode. So you can just come in here, decrease the preview by a lot, and look at that. Now we have a bunch of vertices, a bunch of cuts going through our text and going through our 8 right there. And so I can do that for all of them. Decrease it, decrease it, decrease it for X, Y, and Z. And now, just like that, we have a ton of vertices. However, it's almost too many. We don't even need that many. So let's just increase these by like just up to 2. And now that's exactly what we want. Look at that. We have an 8 with a bunch of vertices to distribute our objects into it. So let's turn off wireframe, turn this layer back off, turn object track 1 on. Let's zoom out a little bit. And now we can double click to create a new pose. Come in here and select the object that you want it to distribute to, and come down to object track 3, and you can either pick just the 8 or the whole text block. This is handy if you have more than one letter in your text block. So we can just pick the 8, and now boom, we have our 8 intact. Look at that. Let's decrease the local scale a little bit and increase the whole scale of this. Something like right there. Look at that. That looks about right. That's good. And then it's also too high, so let's just move it down in the Y position. And now when I scrub through here, we can see everything's working really fast, and our objects now turn from our face to our 8, just like that. Very cool. Very cool. That was fast. However, now you go, well, that's cool, but it is pretty boring because it just goes in a direct line from one to the next and doesn't look very cool. It's kind of swarming within itself. Okay, I got you here. Let's make it arch out and give it some swarming motion. And so before I click on this transition, let's turn off our paths, because if I leave them on, there's like 5,000, 6,000, 5,700 objects in our scene, and it will just take way too much time for our program. So we're just going to turn them off, click on our transition, and now it's time to animate. So first things first, let's give it a cascade order. So I want the face to be demolished from left to right. So we can go left to right. And now the face, let's give it some cascade. And now you see the face goes away from left to right, just like that. Perfect. However, that's way too much cascade. So I'm going to take this number down to something really small, like 0.01, and that gives it a better look just from left to right. Sort of a crumbling look versus a left, a very obvious left to right. Next, we can give it some arch. I want to give it sort of a random arch between two higher numbers, and so we can give it a random spread, and then take this whole arch number up to like lower being like 40 something. There we go, 45, 65. And now, just like that, when everything's arching up, it looks a lot cooler. Except now everything is just going directly over itself. And so let's give it a arch direction. Same thing, let's give it some random spread. And now, when it falls into place, it looks really cool and swarmy. And look at that animation right there. Okay, so now that we have that, let's give it some ease, and so that it will ease in the beginning and ease at the end. So I'll give it something like 10 and 70. And now when it eases in the beginning, it slowly moves into full speed and then swarms around and slows into the final position. And so perfect, look at that. So right there, we have our animation of our objects that fast. Now let's go ahead and create a camera. Just to give it a little camera tilt, give it a little extra animation. This is just for extra special effects, right? We can look at the right hand side of this face. Zoom back a little, double click to create a new pose, and then let's just move this guy around. I'm just using the camera tumble tool to move around. And so now we have our face, it all swarms, our camera's moving, and everything moves nice into place. And just like the objects, let's give the camera an ease as well. So let's give that 10 and 70 as well. Okay, just like that, we have all the animation done and ready to go. So let's go into our material workspace and start making the objects look a little prettier. So all we're going to do for this one though is take this preset right here. This is material 18, or metal 18, and then you can just take it, drag it onto the object, click all, and boom, we have all of our objects material put onto them, ready to go. And then the last thing I want to do inside of ProAnimator is I want to give it some ambient occlusion, and this is a big deal right here. Click on this lighting workspace right here, and what this is going to do is in between these objects it's going to make it a little bit darker and give it a lot more realistic, sort of fake shadow lighting. So we'll turn this on, increase the darkness by a lot, and then jump over back to our animation workspace just so we can see how this looks. And now let's make sure output ray tracer, good. Click render test. Has to calculate everything in the scene, but once it does, it's going to be pretty quick for us. And you're going to see how cool this sucker looks. Okay, so look at that. Isn't that a huge difference right there? And so now when I scrub along, it comes back to OpenGL, and then I can maybe click render test again, and boom, that's fast, just like that. I have my 8 with my ambient occlusion turned on, and man, that just looks so much cooler. Gosh, look at that right there. Okay, and look how fast it's working too. So of course, I am also inside of After Effects. I have been the whole time with the plugin. If you are using the standalone, this tutorial is done for you. You can take your animation, render it out, and take it into your video editing program. Otherwise, let's click OK, go into our After Effects comp. It just has to load in our scene for us, and boom, we have our scene ready to go. Let's do a couple things. Let's create a background for ourselves. So we'll come up here, composition, layer, new, solid, there. Give it a black color. Put it behind our ProAnimator layer. Actually, let's rename this guy while we're at it. And then let's find our gradient ramp. Drag that right onto our guy right here. Turn it to a radial ramp. And then I want this, I want to swap the colors and make the white color a dark brown. Just like that. And then let's take our start of ramp and put that like dead middle, and take the end ramp and push that guy out a little bit. Okay, and so just like that, we have a nice background. And then let's go ahead and create an adjustments layer. These are, final adjustments I do for every single thing I do, and it just adds that extra touch, that extra look to make your stuff go from just ordinary to professional. So let's go ahead. We can find our curves. Take this guy, oops, drop that right on, and then we can take. We can give it a contrast curve by taking this guy, put it a little lower, and taking this guy and put it up a little higher. And so that's a little too much. You can fiddle around with this, see exactly what you want. And just like that, look at that. We have, this is without, this is with. It's a pretty big difference right away. I also noticed that this has a very nice red color if you want to bring out the red color. So let's go to our red channel and just bring this guy up just a little bit. And so just like that, You see the big difference in between the two. And of course, when we click along here, we still have our animation all ready to go, looking very nice and stylish. Look at that. Alright, so that's it for this tutorial. If you have any other questions, please email me. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time.